The first child falls off her bicycle. She cries. Her parent comes over, crouches down and says, "That hurt. I can see that. Take a breath. Let's look at it together." The second child falls off her bicycle. She cries. Her parent says, "You're fine. Get up. Stop making such a big deal out of everything." Both children get back on the bicycle. Both children go home for dinner. Both children are loved. By age 5, these two children will have measurably different brains, different emotional wiring, different relationships with confidence, fear, and the world. And it all started with one difference in how their parents responded to the same moment. The first child lives in a responsive home. In the morning, she wakes up anxious about a new day at preschool. Her parent notices. They sit with her for a moment, acknowledge the feeling, and say, "It's okay to feel nervous. I'll be there to pick you up at 3. They don't minimize. They don't solve. They witness. When she falls, as we already saw, the feeling is named before the bandage is applied. When she refuses to eat dinner, her parent gives her one choice within a boundary. You don't have to eat the carrots. But this is dinner, so we're not making anything else tonight. The refusal is met with calm, not conflict. The second child lives in a dismissive home. In the morning, she says she doesn't want to go to school. Her parent says, "You're being silly. Everyone loves school. Get your shoes on." The feeling is redirected before it is acknowledged. When she falls, the message is efficiency. You're okay. Come on. The pain is real, but the expectation is that it should be brief. When she refuses to eat, the response escalates. Frustration, negotiation, sometimes anger, or the parent gives in entirely, making a separate meal because the conflict feels worse than the surrender. Both parents love their children. Both parents are doing what they believe is right. Here is where the research shows the difference. In 1997, psychologist John Gottman at the University of Washington published findings from a decade-long study on what he called emotion coaching, the practice of acknowledging and helping children understand their emotions rather than dismissing or redirecting them. Children raised with emotion coaching showed lower resting heart rates, recovered from stress faster, had fewer behavioral problems at school, and demonstrated higher academic performance by middle childhood, not because their parents were softer, but because their nervous systems had been taught that emotions are survivable. The first child learns, "My feelings are real, manageable, and worth attention." The second child learns, "My feelings are inconvenient, excessive, and best hidden quickly." These are not small lessons. They are the architecture of a self. At the neurological level, what is happening is this. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for emotional regulation, decision-making, and impulse control, develops most rapidly between ages 2 and 7, and it develops in direct relationship with how adults respond to a child's emotional states. When a child's emotion is met with calm acknowledgement, the stress response activates and then resolves. The brain practices the full cycle: feel, regulate, recover. Over thousands of repetitions, this builds regulatory capacity. When a child's emotion is dismissed or punished, one of two things happens. Either the stress response is suppressed, the child learns to perform calm while remaining internally activated, or the response escalates because the feeling was never actually processed. A 2012 study from the University of Oregon found that children who experienced frequent emotional invalidation showed elevated cortisol reactivity to mild stressors by age 7, meaning their stress systems had been calibrated to over-respond, not because of trauma, but because of accumulated small moments of dismissal. The first child learns, distress has an end. The second child learns, distress must be managed alone, quickly, and without burdening anyone. Research on attachment, particularly the work of Alan Sroufe at the University of Minnesota, across 4 decades, shows that the quality of early emotional responsiveness predicts not just mood, but the fundamental expectation a child carries about whether relationships are safe. The first child develops what attachment researchers call a secure base. She can explore, fail, and return. The second child develops a more vigilant relationship with closeness needing it, but not fully trusting it. Fast forward. At age 10, the first child disagrees with her teacher about something. She says so, calmly and clearly, and accepts the outcome without collapse. She has learned that her voice is worth using. At 10, the second child either doesn't speak up at all or does so explosively because she never had a middle register modeled for her. Feelings were either suppressed or they overflowed. At 15, the first child has a conflict with a close friend. She is hurt. She names it. She navigates it. The friendship survives. The second child, at 15, is more likely to either withdraw entirely or react with disproportionate intensity. and both responses trained by years of emotional experience that was either dismissed or unprocessed. At 25, the Minnesota longitudinal study, which followed children from birth into adulthood, found that early attachment security predicted not just relationship quality, but the capacity to regulate emotion under stress, the ability to seek support without shame, and resilience after setbacks. The first child at 25 knows how to be upset and still function. She knows how to ask for help. She knows that struggle does not mean something is permanently wrong. The second child at 25 is capable and often competent, but somewhere underneath, there is a learned reflex. Make the feeling small. Move on quickly. Don't be too much for anyone. Most parents are somewhere between these two. Not fully dismissive, not consistently responsive. Tired some days. Present on others. Doing what they were shown, or actively trying to do something different from what they were shown. The question is not which category you fall into. It is which direction you want to move in, because the research shows that even small, consistent shifts change the trajectory. The first shift. Before you respond to a child's emotion, name what you see. Not a diagnosis, just a reflection. You seem really frustrated right now. This single act tells the child's nervous system that the feeling has been received. It does not require you to agree, fix, or linger. It requires 10 seconds. The second shift. Separate the behavior from the emotion. You can be angry. You cannot hit. This teaches the child that all feelings are acceptable and that not all responses to feelings are. That distinction is the foundation of emotional regulation. Neither of these shifts requires a perfect parent. They require a present one. Both children in this story are loved. But love, without awareness of how it lands in a child's nervous system, sometimes looks different from the inside than it does from the outside. A child who is told she is fine when she is not fine learns very quietly that the person who loves her most cannot fully hold her truth, and she adjusts herself accordingly. That adjustment is not dramatic. It happens in small moments, across years, in the space between what a child feels and what they learn to show. Which of these two patterns do you recognize most in your own upbringing? Tell me in the comments.